It is originally 2,000 American dollars, and mine was a whopping $13. That's a significant saving in my books. Some of you may recall at the beginning of this year, I did a party dress that was inspired by Ariana Grande's appearance on Jimmy Fallon. This was by the designer Cecilie Bahnsen, and I loved the fluffy shape. Then, inspired by the still very cold temperatures outside, I took a sleeping bag and made it into a winter coat. Oh, it's really hot. Now, to close off this year, the planet has come full circle. We are back to the cold land of Canada, and I'm back with wanting to make pretty and warm clothes. And Cecilie Bahnsen is still making some really pretty stuff. So today we're making a Cecilie Bahnsen inspired winter coat out of a blanket. This would not have been possible without my local Value Village finally having the perfect blanket in stock. I stalked that place so much. Let me lie it out on the floor and show you what we're working with. In its full glory. The full size of this blanket was about 2.5 meters squared, and it has these 2 rounded corners as well as 2 long seams that I need to navigate. This is what I would like to sew today, so I drew this plan to divvy up the pieces that I needed to cut out. My preference is always to start with the back and the 2 front pieces, so let's cut those out first. In case you're wondering why I'm cutting 2 front pieces since you only have 1 front as a person, it's because the original design I'm mimicking is a wrap style, so 2 pieces have to cross in the front to close off the jacket. I used a shell jacket that I own as a model since that jacket I felt like had a similar drop shoulder and width as the coat that I'm going for. So the first step, and if you've watched many of my tutorials, you know what it is, which is we're going to sew these together along the shoulders. Here's the back, here's this front's shoulder, right sides together. Oh wait, oh shoot, wrong sides together. I already messed up. This is the back. This is one of the fronts. We're gonna sew it wrong sides together. That's different, and you will see why soon, but we're just gonna throw down a straight stitch in the meantime. That gets us this open-ended vest. I'm looking at the screen to see like if the neck hole looks about right. This looks like it could protect me from the cold. The next step is where the harder work is gonna start. So, bias tape. This is cut diagonal to the weave of the fabric. It's 2 inches or 5 centimeters wide, and we need this to wrap every single seam so that they look all pretty and magical and professional. Cutting this was the easy part. However, this still contains the quilt batting and the backing of the blanket, and all we really want is this satin fabric in the front and none of these guys. As is tradition around here, I gotta whip out the seam ripper. I have to take out every single one of these little stitches to separate this piece of fabric. See you in a couple hours. I just made one for now, but I think I'm gonna spend the rest of the night making the rest of these ribbons because I do need a lot. So this is the ribbon. I seam ripped it away from the batting layer. Then I ironed it in half to give it a fold down the middle in order to attach it. I'm saying this with confidence, but I'm actually not 100% sure, but this is what my research has shown me. So first, I'm going to trim down the raw edges of the seam. Bye-bye. Then taking your beautiful satin ribbon that you made yourself with your sweat and tears, you want the original seam that's holding the shoulders together to be the midpoint of the edge and the fold that you made. And we're gonna sew that all the way down across with a straight stitch. It's business time. I'm just gonna cut off the rest of the ribbon I don't need before I finish this stitch. Here it is attached to that seam, and the original seam is hidden away because I made sure I like just skirted the edge of it. All nice and clean. We're just basically gonna like fold this over to the other side and sew it down with a straight stitch. But when you fold it over, you want to also tuck in this raw edge. So so that it locks everything away. Let me give it a try on this shoulder, and if that turns out great, I'll show you the complete steps on the other shoulder. I figured it out, here we go. Open up the bias tape and sew it to the shoulder seam on the back side of the top. Then flip it over to the front of the top, fold the bias tape in by 1/4 and sew that down with a straight stitch. Finally, flatten the bias tape by pushing it towards the back of the top and add one more straight stitch along the far folded edge so that now it's got 2 straight stitches flanking the entire bias tape. Here's how this looks as a finished product. So the neckline is a little bit high. I may have to trim this down, but this is my first time attempting this type of joinery, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. I think this one is even better because it was my second attempt. Ah yes, even neater. The end here, this can be cut off, and same up here, I can just cut this off when I trim the neck. This is where it should be. Whew. I ended up working the rest of the night on the remaining bias tape, seam ripping all of the batting off of it, cleaning up all the threads, folding it in half, ironing it in place. And today, the next step we're going to tackle is the sleeves. For the sleeves, I copied that same shell liner jacket that I have, with the main difference being that I was aiming to make my sleeves twice as wide as I want to get some gathering at the top and the bottom of the sleeve so I can get this balloon effect. Always make sure your sleeves are symmetrical. Here is sleeve number 1, and on the inside I put a B for back and an F for front because you do not want to forget those kind of details. Here is the other sleeve with the opposite B for back and F for front. The very first thing we're going to do is add a basting stitch all the way along the top, which is just a straight stitch on the widest stitch length possible, and that we're going to use to help us gather it up so that it fits the top that we've made so far. I don't know what this was supposed to be, but when it comes to this gathering stitch, I like to do 2 parallel stitches, again with the longest stitch length possible, and on one side of these parallel stitches I tie together the inner 2 strands, and on the other side I tie together the outer 2 strands, pull on the remaining untied strands, and it's gonna start to gather. I've done this so many times, so I didn't want to linger on it too long. If you want to see a thorough tutorial on how this is done, there will be a link in the description. The goal here is to have the sleeve gathered to a degree where it perfectly matches the length of this armhole. So I've just gotten some gathering started, but now I'm going to pin this to the armhole and do the fine tuning that is needed. And then after that, I'm gonna sew them together, wrong sides together. Again, lots of wrong sides together today. It's a new day. Now that the sleeves are attached, I gotta do that bias binding treatment again to this seam. So we're gonna cut off the excess, sew this to one side, flip it over, sew it down with a straight stitch to the other side. However, this time I don't think I'll do that last one where you lie it down and give it one more securing stitch. And I think it's because just on the original, I'm pointing over here because my laptop is here, this one is like standing up, it's not lying down. Here's one of the ribbons that I diligently prepared last night. I will sew this on and then we can start to work on the bottom half. Heading back to the blanket, it is time to cut out the skirt section. So just like how I had 2 fronts and 1 back with the skirt, we also need 2 fronts and 1 back, which gets us 3 identical rectangles. Normally I would not stagger these so that the measuring process would be a lot easier. The staggering, as seen in the original plan, was just so I could get the maximum hypotenuse for my bias tape strips. So we've got our rectangles, now we can put together the skirt. I forgot to cut these out earlier, but I'm cutting out the pockets now. I came way too perilously close to not doing pockets. Too close. Here's the pocket piece that I've cut out. You need 2 pieces per pocket. These pockets get sewn right sides together along the U shape of it. Leave this open for your hand. Now you can take these pockets and sew them to this skirt. You want to put one along the edge on the left skirt, one along the edge on the right skirt, and you just sew it in place with 1 straight stitch that only touches one edge of the pocket. Okay, I have here the left side of the skirt, the right side of the skirt, and the back side of the skirt. All three of these need a gathering stitch along the top edge, so let's gather. I cut these skirt pieces to be roughly 2 times the width that they needed to be in order to match the width of the top half. So that'll be enough to give me some good gathering, hopefully. Just like before, I'm tying the 2 top strings together over here and letting the 2 bottom strings hang loose. Then on the beginning end, the 2 top strings hang loose. And then when you pull on the loose strings, you get some gathering. We're just gonna keep going until it's roughly the width of that front flap, and then I'm gonna pin them together and do the final adjustments. Really just like how we did the sleeves. You can do it too. Judy, Judy, Judy. She's back. Let me see if I can make her taller. Ooh. And to double check, this one has no pocket, therefore it is indeed the back skirt. We're going to be pinning this right sides together. Wrong sides together. We're going to be pinning this wrong sides together along the entire length of the back. I'm going to do the 2 sides first, then I can move the gather in between so that they match in width. And just like attaching the sleeves, straight stitch across, and then we're going to seal it with that bias tape once again. Okay, actually I just tried this on and I realized that this front, back, and this other front are too long, so I'm gonna trim them all down across and then attach the skirt.
Huh?
Oh my gosh, it's happening. Also, I'm really sorry about my to-do list being on the mirror. This is my way of making sure things get done. I just feel so magical all of a sudden. It's a wrap. Breaks and take snacks. Actually, Robin says that there is pizza outside. There they are, 4 sad little slices, and not even a bird in sight. Robin says it's because it's from Pizza Pizza. Here is the skirt attached to the top, wrong sides together, and I'm going to finish it off with the bias, just like how I did this armhole right here. It looks quite nice, if I do say so myself. So I'm just gonna go do that. These are all the tapes that I prepared last night, and I'm just sincerely hoping that it is enough. Whew, I finally get to seal the sides, so every single waist piece has been attached with the beautiful binding as well. Yes, you gotta cheer for yourself if you're alone. This is the sleeve, but it's wide open and it needs to become closed so that it is a tube that your beautiful arm fits inside. Only hazards I want to point out, again, sewing them wrong sides together. First, the small stitch to get to the top of the pocket. So I sewed the sides together, but I stopped just short of where the pocket begins. Then now I'm just going to sew this side of the pocket to the back side of the skirt. What I'm doing to get it fully attached to the skirt is I have the pocket pinned at the top point, I have the pocket pinned at the bottom point, and then starting from the top, we put it under the machine, get it ready, and I just kind of open up the pocket all the way to the back so that we can get as close into the seam as possible. And then again at the front, pulling on the whole pocket so that we have this wide open. We just want to get as close to this seam as we can. Now the pocket is completely attached to the front and the back of the skirt, so now all that's left is this tail end of the skirt that needs to be joined together. And that's how you join the skirt right sides together with room for the pocket. Okay, now starting from the waist, going up to the end of the sleeve. Now we are truly in the home stretch. I can't say it with confidence. This is a good time to trim the collar so that it fits your neck properly. Mine was riding a little bit high up on the back of my neck. As well, I took this opportunity to trim the bottom edge of the coat so that it hit just above the knee like the original does. My sleeves did not need any trimming, but if they did, I would have trimmed them at this point too. It is about to be bias tape madness. We are going to seal every edge, leave no edge unsealed. I'm about to bind the side seam, and what you don't want is to use a ribbon that is too short, because you don't want to have to like join multiple of them together if you don't have to. I'm just taking these ribbons and double checking that they're long enough to span the whole thing before I start sewing it on. Both of these are good to go, so they're going to become the right and the left. It's just too much. Stress has happened off camera that I didn't document. Let's do this. The trick here with the pocket is that I only added the bias tape to the front edge, and then I just gotta go in and complete this one. This is a great time to use those scraps since they're such small little pieces. Opening up the bias tape and folding an edge down, just get up in here, pin that in place. We're gonna sew all along this valley with a straight stitch. At the end here, I want enough so I can fold it back again, so I'm gonna cut a bit beyond. Let's flip the pocket around. This piece of fabric that we just sewed, bring it in towards the middle. And that's how I finished off the pocket. It might not be the most professional way, but this was by far the easiest way to also make sure that the seams were sealed. It's mostly invisible. There you are. A place for your warm hands. I decided to add this tiny little stitch so that this flap would not just hover out there. But here you can see this waist binding was sewn in a flipped up position. And then over here, this was sewn in a flipped down position. This is the armpit. This is the waist. Waist, flip up, armpit, flip down. Oh no! No! Is that? Oh, it's just fluff. Oh gosh, I thought it was a stain. Wait, that one is a stain? Nope, also fluff. Oh gosh. No! I really thought this was gonna make it to the end, and it is not, sadly. This is why we'd be keeping these little stubs to bridge this gap. The first step is to open both of them up, place them right sides together, and we're gonna sew across a straight stitch. Once they've been joined together, you can cut away all the leftovers and keep sewing, but when I get to this, I'm gonna try to make sure it's laying flat and open so that it has a really low profile. Now we're just going to keep this open, flip it over, and wrap on the front side. Okay, it is day 3. I really want to get this done. I finished the binding around the entire piece, even including the sleeves, and the plan is to scrunch it up using an elastic. Is that elastic? It is bias tape. Bias tape. Ah, there's some elastic. This or this? All right, I'll bring them both over. Actually, it does not look like they use an elastic. It looks like they gather the end of the sleeve and then bind it. I also went ahead and made these ribbons out of the remaining bias tape. These will be used to secure the coat. So on the inside here, there needs to be a place where I can tie this to the inside. And then on the outside over here, there needs to be a place where I can tie this to the outside. Check this out so far. I'm so fluffy. And next time you see me, it'll be done.
Please, allow me to show you something.
The entire time making this, I kept being mind blown as I realized that I'm so self-taught in this. Like, I did learn how to sew from my mom to start, so I am comfortable with a machine, but things like gathering, the bias tape, like cutting to match patterns, a lot of that stuff I just have been learning over these years as experience, and now I can't believe I'm making my own coat. Just wanted to share that little celebration. This is definitely a statement coat. I'm so excited to wear it out. It will require some long sleeves, ooh, or like elbow length gloves. Uh-oh, too many thoughts. Thank you all so much for watching this episode of Can She DIY It? I hope you've really enjoyed our adventures over all of 2019. And if you've been watching since the beginning, thank you for being with me for our 10 years. I'm really excited to start the new decade with you all. If you end up taking a blanket and making yourself one of these adorable numbers, or any of my other tutorials, use the hashtag #MadeWithWendy so I can find it on Instagram. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to hit the bell notifications. I will see you all in the next video. Bye bye. So long. Farewell. Auf Wiedersehen. Good night. Goodbye.